Welcome everyone to Series 3 of the Build to Win Masterclass series. So we focus on helping people achieve compliance to the NCC and the standards, but we try to apply it in real projects across design, system selection, installation, and inspection. Now, most people get confused by the governing documents of the NCC and the standards, so we try to simplify it. And we don't try to do it on our own. We get the industry-leading experts and manufacturers to participate to try and make it simple and break it down so it's simple. We aim to shape a new mindset in the construction industry where collaboration across all sectors becomes a part of the norm once again, like it used to be back in the day when we build slower, where everyone on site knew each other. You know, there was the left hand spoke to the right. We're not at that level anymore. Now we're in a state of litigation. So it's really important that we all try and get on the same page and work together. And we're starting to see that shift in the industry. Can't put on this series without the sponsorship and the support from all of these great sponsors. We're just going to read them out. Dry Space Solutions from Jamie Stone. We're going to hear from him directly after Mal. Burn Technical Services, Brendan Byrne. He's helped me put this series together. Logs in and out from all around Australia. I call him the single Leyland brother now because he's just, I don't know where he's rocking up from, right? Starlink, he's just out here going to some festival over there. Then he's here. Jamie Jury. I'm like, mate, I can't keep up. Dan Ray Group, Waterproofing Integrity, Bayset. We've got Mal Ferraro, mate, the main man here tonight. Xtech Gen, the construction advisor, Endurax, RLA Polymers, Demtech, Kingspan, Aquin, Ross Taylor and Associates, Dincel, Projects Group, Monsoon Australia, Seal Cone Filler Gauge, the Water Stop Shop, Jasani. Amazing amount of experience that is got one sole goal is to help you become better at what you do. Okay, so schedule. We're going to run through. So we're in series 3 of 4 series throughout the year. So we run one a quarter. I'm definitely not going to run one a quarter next year. I can already tell you that. I've put myself in hot water already, particularly bringing up 2 young kids. But here's what the series looks like. So pre-series feature release, we've got Mal Ferraro from CEO from Bayset. Well, I'll introduce him on the next slide. Dry Space Solutions, we've got Jamie Stone. Jamie participates in all the basement webinars we have throughout the series. And then we've got a whole range of other manufacturers and industry experts throughout the remainder of the series. 2 bathrooms, 2 balconies, 2 basements. That's how it works. So no recordings this time round. Informal CPD. If you need your certificate, you need to email us. Okay, we don't mind read. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce me mate Mal Ferraro. Mal is the CEO of Bayset and Vice President of the Australian Institute of Waterproofing. Certified structural waterproofer, holds a Cert 3 in construction waterproofing as well, and brings more than 30 years of industry experience across Australia and in the UK. His career spans hands-on waterproofing, technical spec, inspections, product development, sales, business leadership, national distribution. And during his time in the UK, he became one of the first 25 people to qualify as a surveyor in structural waterproofing, and later held senior roles within the construction products industry. Mal, how are you, mate?
Good, buddy. Good.
How are you, mate?
Quite,
Thank you for your willingness to participate on your birthday.
no problem. Quite an introduction, mate, I would say. So thank you. I would certainly not, well, I'm not one for talking myself up, mate, but no, thank you. Thanks for having me, mate. I'm actually glad to be part of it, mate. And yeah, looking forward to
No,
having a chat.
glad to have you part of it. I was a bit envious when you told me you're up on Strati the other day, and it was lovely winter conditions at 22 degrees because I think it was 2 down here, mate. So, and my office is a bungalow without insulation, and rats in the roof. I've just noticed tonight too. So if you hear some running around, I apologise, mate. So for those who don't know, enter into the game of
Yep.
waterproofing? Like, where did it all begin?
Yeah, sure. So there's be a few people I know on here that know this story. Jamie certainly does. Look, mate, I grew up in North Queensland on a cane farm, so I had a crack at everything doing that. Then, as you do, being a cane farmer, then I was actually in the hospitality industry through for various reasons. Loved that, and when I met my wife, Alison, who was a Pommy backpacker at the time in Sydney, uh, moved back to the UK, and her dad had a waterproofing business which had already been running for 35 years at that time. And to be honest, mate, I didn't even know what waterproofing was. I'd never
Mm.
even heard of it. And these guys had a big business, as I said, 35 years, but a lot of it was dry rot and
Yeah.
damp proofing, and structural waterproofing was just coming into the fore, and habitable basements, and that was back in 1997. And that was how I got into it, mate. I'd like to say he said, "Oh, do you want to?" His name was Malcolm as well, to be honest. So it's quite interesting. So yeah, mate, that's how I found my way into it. And it was certainly, look, there was some guys there that, mate, that had been their whole career
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
So for me to jump in there and have guys that were like, I was very lucky early on, Byron, to get taught that if you just shut your mouth and listen to some older, wiser guys than yourself and ask questions and be a bit humble, you learn some stuff. So I had guys that could just walk into a job. And I remember doing this with Jamie originally when we looked at a cavity drain job was, okay, well, how many days is it going to take? Cool. They used to go in there and go, oh, well, we want to earn 500 quid a day per man. Oh, well,
Mhm.
it's 10 man days. I reckon it's 5,000 quid. Spend all the time you want working it all out, but they were that good at their jobs that they
Yeah.
could just price it up. So yeah, mate, that's how I found my way into it. And it was actually very, for me, the good thing was at that time, they were just starting out into the structural waterproofing. They
Yeah.
were very good in the damp proofing and dry rot space. So I got to jump on board, and we were the first Newton approved contractors in the UK.
Yeah.
So really in this infancy of cavity drain, and got to really learn some stuff.
So, you know, back in the day, respectfully, mate, that was quite a few years ago.
Yep,
What are some of the differences, you know, from you came over from Australia, you're green around the gills, you've met
yep,
someone at the pub probably, and then
yep,
you fell in love with the Pommy accent, and you're like, this bird's all right, I'm going to go back and travel over there. And
yep,
getting into waterproofing, it's a tough gig. It's not an easy gig, and
mm,
then also doing it in the UK where it's very cold, which
yep,
very cold and very damp. So it poses a lot of issues for a successful waterproofing outcome. So it's probably
yep,
the best place to learn. One question that comes to my mind is, what type of construction was it back there? Was it reinforced concrete block work? How is it
yep.
different from Australia? And how did they navigate the complexities of the cold, damp environment the whole time?
Yeah, yeah, good questions, mate. Look, certainly, and even to this day, because, mate, I'm still very good friends with a lot of people over there,
Yeah,
particularly the Newton waterproofing crowd, and also the guys that in Mapei over there as well, who I worked for at the back end of my career in the UK there. But to this day, mate, they don't put block work below ground.
yeah,
It's all RC concrete. There's no bullshit shotcrete either, mate. So if you're going to build a basement and you're going to make a habitable area below ground, it's going to be reinforced concrete.
yeah,
So that once again, so that's for me, everything I learned, like for me, I just learnt the way they built there, right?
mhm,
And you talked earlier, Byron, when in your intro about how when we used to build a bit slower and
mhm,
people used to all work in, well, that's how it was there. It was like the program is the
yeah,
program, mate. And like we did a lot of structural rendering.
yeah,
So we were seeker approved contractors, and we used to do. They had a render system which was three coats of 6 mil render and with their Seeker One additive in it,
yeah,
and so mate, you had to allow that to dry.
Yeah.
You had to put that on. You couldn't put fans in there and heaters because otherwise you'd get cracking in it.
Yeah.
So, if we were doing an underground vault that might only be 150, 200 square meters,
Mm.
we would take a week to do it.
Yeah.
Like we'd go there, do a coat, go off and do another job. You'd have your job staged,
Mm.
but it wasn't around, mate, just fucking get it done.
Well, and that's the thing, and that's where we're at now in Australia, and it's not slowing down. So it's
No.
going to segue perfectly into my next question. But one of the dramas we've got, in the construction industry, and, I get on the front foot and say the builder is not the builder anymore. The builder is a name on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And they've got a couple of punters running a job who may have just come straight out of uni. And then we're trying as waterproofing suppliers and waterproofing installers, trying to make these really scientific, complex products work on environments that are trying to cause them to fail. And then when you have a skill set from a project manager who is undergunned and subjected to all of these pressures and not letting the boss down, we just have a clash. And so the pace of build is a huge drama. But also, I wanted to get your thoughts on, we've got NCC 2025. Okay. There's structural fall now in concrete, whereas we've predominantly had, I understand the thought process behind having structural fall and, integral hobs. But now we've moved the goalposts significantly to have structural fall, whereas we had flat fall and we had screeds and we had all of these other alternative solutions to be able to construct really complex buildings, because they are, a commercial class 2 apartment building. It's a complex building. What are your thoughts around the NCC 2025 changes and how they affect waterproofing? And this is probably going to be one of the last waterproofing questions, and I just want to talk about Mal.
Yeah, sure.
And the outruling of screeds, for example, and the issues that's probably going to have for industry.
Well, from my perspective, Byron, I don't mince words, mate. I think a lot of it's bullshit, to be honest. I think we all know falls, right? But, mate, as long as I've been waterproofing in Australia, every single manufacturer's data sheet has said you must have falls to the waist.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's nothing new, right? So, okay, you're nominating 1 in 80 falls and 1 in 100 falls, all great. I think there's some really good stuff in the NCC 2025, like around basements and making sure that you got to get a designer on board at an early stage. That is fantastic.
100%.
The big challenge, though, mate, is what continually happens in our industry is we move the goalposts. We say, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to implement it. By the way, all you applicators who we've just told, don't waterproof under screeds anymore, waterproof over screeds. We've trained you all how to do that. We've all told you, hey, you're doing it wrong. Everything's got to be under. Oh no, we've changed their mind now. Now it's got to be under screed. So my problem is not so much with the MCC 2025 or the NCC. It is, how do we get it to the end user, and how do we train people, give them the proper QA tools like you said, like Complibuild, like all the training, the Bayset, AIW, various industry bodies do around. But, mate, even if, like, Bayset, we trained 2,000 people last year.
Yeah.
Like, that's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. So the problem is it comes along, we go, Victoria, we're going to adopt it straight away. Yeah. So we just click our fingers and expect everybody to know what they're meant to do from day one. So I also am a little bit, mate, I've grown up around a lot of concreters, mate. We're going to ask them to get structural falls. That's a challenge, right? And then, okay, if they don't get it, we've already seen evidence of it on various sites that my guys are doing tech things on where, we're just going to grind it. Okay, well, what happened to the issue of silica that we were talking about? Yeah. So there's a lot to unpack, mate. Like, I could get, I'm not on my horse about it, mate, but it's training, right? The key is we just dump things on applicators and expect them to know how to do it. And they rock up a site and say, hey, are you complying with the NCC, or are you using the housing provision? Like, when we as you know, mate, we had a training course in Camberfield last week. We had 45 guys to that.
Yeah.
And that was purely just on the NCC because
Yeah.
guys are just scratching their head going, how am I meant to go about earning $1 and doing this waterproofing job that I was doing differently 4 months ago?
Yeah. It's a huge drama, so the training component is a huge drama, and this is what I've really been trying to work on, outside of everything, whatever people think. I'm just trying to, how can I teach people while they're on the tools? Okay.
Yeah.
Because you can't rip them off, right? So generally what happens is one or two or three people from the company, they'll come out and do the training, but then the punters are out on site and they're not getting it. And like, I will go and tell them what we've learned. It doesn't happen. Everyone's too busy, right? And further to that, it's repetitious learning that reinforces the learning. Like I've learned more about the codes and standards since I got off the tools than when I was on the tools because I got the time to study it. Like I study it as part of my job. The biggest job, like when I got introduced into tiling and waterproofing, when I was tiling, I didn't touch a tile for 6 months. I screeded for 6 months. And it was purely for the fact that you can't get concrete to the level of flatness that is required to stop it from having ponding.
Yep.
And now we're subjected to, in the waterproofing industry, to have structural fall into concrete slab and put a membrane over it and not expect any ponding. So that's a masterclass in itself, Mel. So mate, you grew Bayset, let's talk about how, you came back from the UK, how'd you start Bayset? Now it's a massive empire, like biggest Australian brand going around. How did it all happen? And has it been hard? And what are some of the challenges that you're faced with at the start? And are they different than the challenges you're faced with now that you've been doing it for such a long period of time?
Well, I'll try to give the 2-minute version, Byron. But look, there's certainly, I see Jamie smiling there. How it happened, Byron, was I moved back. I worked for Mapei in the UK, and then I came back here, and they wanted me to work for them here. And I loved that company, and I thought I would be with them for my life. And it turned out my boss was an absolute tosser when I got back here. And at the time, Bayset was this tiny little company with 3 shops just doing their own thing all individually. And they were my first customer.
Yeah.
So when I went out and talked to them, I thought, oh, this is a good business. And then when I didn't get on with my boss, I was like, right, I want a vehicle to prove what I know works, what Mapei had shown me in the UK with customer service training, do the right thing, just do what you say you're going to do. And so managed to, I met the boys from Bayset, where the guys that I became partners in Bayset, where they just bought that business off the existing owner, Frank Mantis, who was a waterproofing contractor. They got into selling some product, and they would just buy anything and sell it. You come in and say, I want Fosrock, Seeker, whatever, they'll just buy it, put 25% on it and sell it. So I did a deal with those guys that if they like me and I like them, I could become part owners with the 3 of them. So we did that. We worked together for 12 months, and like any partnerships, there was a few rocky moments, but then they said and then I bought in, and we all became equal shareholders in the business. And was it hard, mate? It was fucking hard. It nearly cost me my marriage. It nearly cost me my house. And mate, there was plenty of times when Brad and I sat around, mate, going, okay, I've got to pay our staff, got to pay our suppliers. I guess we're not paying our mortgages again this week. But mate, there's plenty of people that be on this podcast, mate, that are starting out in their own businesses, doing exactly the same thing now. And I think for me, the big thing is, mate, people always go, oh, mate, you're really good at it. No, I'm not really good at it. Yeah, I'm an okay salesman. But, mate, it's hard work, right? It's not overnight. Success doesn't just frigging happen, mate. You've got to turn up every day. And, mate, like, okay, I feel good now, mate, that I get to work 60 hours a week. Back then, mate, we were working 90 to 100 hours a week. Every week, mate, coming in. and you know what? It was bloody good fun as well, though, mate. We had a lot of good fun. But the one thing we always did, mate, was we backed up what we said. We started a business. My whole thing was one of our key mantras was, mate, we will stand beside you, mate. We're not going to stand behind you, mate. We're going to stand beside you and help you have that argument with the builder. So when the builder is busting your balls around, why are you doing this detail? Why is that? Da 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 da. We will stand beside you and we'll have that argument with you and we will support you. So that
And
was the key to success, mate.
yeah, mate, I look at what you've done. I know we've had some conversations outside of this forum about, I've had a few cracks at a couple of things, and you're right, it's not easy. Yeah, it's not easy and I know you said you're like, mate, because I've got a newborn, 4 months now, 4.5, and you're like, shit, I remember I think I was a couple of months earlier than that, and I was like, I'm chipping in to buy base, and there was, a couple of tough conversations.
Correct.
But you really do. You got to put your balls on the line, and I think if you maintain what you're saying, what you're doing, where you're going, the integrity, the values, the people resonate. Like, it was great to see you and Jamie on here before everyone else jumped on, and you guys reconnect. And I know Jamie's going to shout you out during the start of his presentation after this. So the industry is quite small, but it can also feel quite big. So there's a couple of other questions I want to sort of talk about this particular topic. There's a lot of young people who want to start out in the construction industry now, or maybe some people who have lost a bit of faith in the industry. If someone's got a big goal and they're prepared to have a crack, with everything that you've gone through, and your journey's far from over, but what advice would you give to them, Mal?
Yeah, pretty easy, mate. It is to find a decent mentor. And when I say mentor, a mate, friend who you can trust, and you got to be vulnerable, mate, and you got to talk about your successes and your failures. Like, I was lucky in that I had some amazing bosses in the waterproofing side in the UK. So I really had that background and skill set, and a really good boss at Mapei in the UK on the sales side. But when it came to business, mate, I had 3 partners. Like, 2 of my partners had already built a massive distribution business called Lincoln Century. So they had been in distribution their whole life, mate. So I had somebody that, and mate, Jesus Christ, did I learn some lessons from those guys? Mate, they'd be like, the numbers don't lie, mate. You can think your sales are growing, but we all know you grow a business that eats money, and there's all these challenges, right? But you've got to find, I was lucky in that I had Brad and I, who worked in the business, mate, would become very close friends. But mate, it was just really about having those honest conversations, going, I'm really struggling here. I don't know what to do here. But you've got to find your people, mate, and you've got to find some people that are on the same journey, but you've also got to find someone that you can trust to be a bit of a mentor for you, because if you don't, and there are a lot of people out there, mate, like, I think now, and this is a whole segue, mate, but the reality of it is the challenges and the stresses on blokes and our inability quite often to speak up to people is a problem, right? So it doesn't have to be, the mentor doesn't have to be in the industry. Most people know how to apply the product and do that part of it. It is the business side of it which fucks people up. They just, mate, all this money. No, you haven't, mate. You haven't paid BAS, you haven't paid super, you haven't paid your tax. By the way, you haven't made your car payments. So there's all those things. And mate, what I have, mate, is a good network. And I know Jamie is one of my close friends, and mate, we don't see each other as much as we used to. But mate, we would sit there and talk ideas, and I remember, kicking ideas around when he first started with the Newton system and targeting markets, and it's awesome. Like, I just love, there are people out there that want to see people succeed. You just got to find your right people, Byron.
And you do, and if you keep holding on to the vibe, I'm a big believer that there's a period of time where the universe will join you together, and some people
Yeah.
like that. That's fluff, but it's the same. I was lucky enough when I started this journey and what I'm doing. I started following a guy called Bob Proctor. Now, most people probably would not know who he is, right? Canadian bloke, old bloke, talking some hoopy goopy shit on YouTube, right? A lot about vibrations and frequencies, okay, and
Yeah.
tapping into
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
he's like, how often, one of the things is how often when you're thinking about someone and then they ring you on the phone.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's the same thing as having someone's phone number. There's that spiritual energy that can be pushed out, and you end up crossing paths with someone who's thinking along the same lines, even if you don't know them or you do know them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so we could do this for an hour and a half, mate, but I'm mindful of old mate who's coming after us and, likes a chat. And then we got Brendan, who I saw come on as well, who's like, you got to give me a couple of minutes with Mel. So two questions.
Sure.
What are your thoughts about failure? Okay. And how have they helped you? And then the second one, in your view, what does it truly mean to build to win in our industry?
Well, the failure thing's easy, mate. If you're not failing, if you're not, it's part of the success journey, right? Like my
Yeah.
thing is, yeah, you can choose to jog along and not fail, but you're never actually reaching your full potential.
Yeah.
If you're not failing, like we talk about it in the Bayset business, and it's something that I always talk about. If you don't break it, you don't know what the capacity of something is, right? So my thing is failure is natural. And if you use the sporting analogy, like when you lose, you learn, right? When you win, you don't really learn anything, right? So
Yeah.
people look at failure, and I know when you've done your ass on a big job or something like that, and we've all been there, done that. It's like that
Yeah.
that hurt, and it does hurt, right? But what you got to do is you got to take the lessons from it and go, okay, forget about that hurt, yeah, but how do we not make that happen again? But how do we actually turn that into a positive? And there is
Mm.
always a positive to it. And for me, most of the success from failure comes, like my thing is when you turn up as a contractor and go, yeah, mate, sorry, really let you down, and we're going to own that, and I'm going to talk to my
Thank
supplier,
you.
and what we're going to do is we're going to
Guys.
make it better. Then they
Oh, shit. Sorry, mate. I just muted you. Mel, unmute yourself, mate. Someone came in and bombed us. So just unmute yourself, Mel.
That's all right, mate. Gotcha. Yep. Yeah. So I think you shouldn't. We don't want to fail, mate, but
Yeah.
you should be prepared to fail and learn from it.
It's the key to success.
Yeah. I think it's a big part to this success, mate. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I got the shit ton of them, mate. Yeah. And I don't. Do they bug me? No. I do.
Yeah.
It's just part of the journey, mate. You don't want to make the same mistake again,
No,
and
that's right.
really that's part of having good people around you, because just own it. Just own
Yeah.
it. Yeah, own it. If you talk about what does it mean to build to win?
Yeah.
Well, I think it means a lot of things to different people, Byron. Yeah,
Yeah.
to me, Brad and I talked about really early days in Bayset, and it sounds a bit wanky, mate, but we just want to leave, and I still want to live by this. I want to leave the industry in a better shape than when I got into it.
Yeah.
Like my journey at the ARW, mate. You and I used to turn up there, and there'd be fucking 5 people there.
Yeah.
Oh, how quick's the meeting going to be over so we can crack some red wine open?
Mm.
Now we've got a proper organization
Definitely.
that's cracking on. And I think the thing is for me, mate, like if you talk about, you've got to understand what your goals are,
Definitely.
and what I would say, like, look, are you doing this? Look at how many people are on this. There's people that are prepared to jump on a podcast at 7 o'clock on a Wednesday night, mate. They're all the guys who want to build to win. It means totally different things to everybody, mate. To me, all I wanted to do, it's never ever been about money for me, mate. I wanted a vehicle to prove to people that if you're dishonest, say what you're going to do, mate. And there are actually people out there that want to deliver best practice to
Yeah.
Mrs. Jones at the end of it. So to me, I'm big on just the consumer getting what they pay for, mate.
Yeah, it's a big one. And it's an end to end. I remember when I got off the tools and I started teaching Cert 3 at trade school, and there's been a huge transition. It was sales documents that got converted into TDSs. So I just went, oh. After 15 to 17 years, I'd been on the tools and I'd never looked at the codes and standards. And here I was teaching people about it, and I was like, holy
Yeah.
shit, we're going to be in a world of pain. Mate, Brendan, are you there?
Yeah, mate.
Brendan rang me specifically earlier and he said, mate, I'm jumping on to ask Mel a couple of questions. Brendan, we're already over time. I'm not sure how many frothies you've had because you told me you were going to the pub. So, this could drag out to fire away, mate.
Can you give me two seconds, please?
Oh, okay. Yep. No worries. We'll carry on. So, today's a significant day for Complibuild. We've launched the new software. We've gone live. Okay. And it's not bug free. It was never going to be. There were some things I had to pull the trigger on, and I just went, if you focus too much on having things perfect, you never actually get anywhere.
Step forward.
Right? So there's going to be some heartache. Craig usually has to deal with the heartache. He filters it from me. But today is a significant day, and from a couple of reasons. And I did a video on it earlier, and I was like, one, mate, Mal, you're a pillar in the industry. You probably don't want me to say that, in front of people live, but you are, mate. You've been around for generations. There's so much that people can learn from you. You've been able to grow a business. You and I had a really good chat when I was up there, a month or 6 weeks ago, and really enjoyed to have that one-on-one time together, mate, to share some, intimate, really intimate information. So I welcome that, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to have you on board here, mate. And then, I know obviously there's some stuff coming up with Complibuild as well, which I'm not going to go too hard on trying to plug that because I don't want to detract away from what it is. But I think we've come together because national trade licensing is something that the country needs. Okay. And it's not just licensing, it's registration and licensing. So everyone being registered. And then if you want to run your own show, you need to become licensed. So I went, shit, I pitched it to the government a few times, and mate, the goalpost shifts. It's the tide in, tide out. Like if I use surfing, like there's a sick bank on that beach, and then the tide goes out, and then it's moved down there, and then like it's all over the shop. So I went, well, how can we work with the manufacturers to go, we're going to back our installers, we're going to be side by side, we're going to provide warranty, we're going to give them a mechanism to be able to manage and monitor everything, which is going to help them run their business better. So I'm really pumped about that. Craig's going to come online after we finish this little podcast just to give people a live viewing of the new software, how to create a project and generate a report. Brendan, have you got your...
Yeah, Byron, I'm ready. Mal,
Okay.
you might recognise the gentleman to my left.
Yep.
Can we see you? I can't see you on my screen. Where are you?
He's got Smithy there. He's got Gregman, New South
Oh,
Wales
yeah,
manager there,
yeah.
mate. So
Mate.
they're living it up in Byron Bay currently.
Yeah, no doubt.
Mal, we just want to say big thank you tonight coming on to the Build to Win series. And, mate, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. Yeah. This is how much the industry means to me, mate. I'm here with you, lads.
100%.
No.
Mel, mate, we probably needed 2 hours for this. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah, we'll circle back to it, mate.
I greatly appreciate you having on board, coming on board and your willingness to participate in the podcast. But furthermore, on your birthday, like, there's plenty of other things you could be doing, but I think that's a testament to show, your involvement and willingness to support the industry and contribute. So greatly appreciate having you on, mate, and having the time to have a chat.
Yeah, appreciate everything. Two things to finish with, mate. I would say to those of you, Bayset is about to jump on with Complibuild, totally all in. You need this is not a plug, mate, but at the end of the day, if you don't have good QA software, eventually somewhere down the line you're going to get bitten on the ass with a job. If you have the photos and the all the history of what you've done, you'll be in with a better chance of getting a result with a builder. I would also urge you all to listen to what Jamie Stone from Dry Space has to say. In my opinion, this guy is now the #1 guy in below ground waterproofing in Australia, and I mean that, mate, and well done. So thanks for having me, Byron. I really appreciate it.
Good on you, Mal. Thank you, mate.